I want to talk about, because I've mentioned things about this news story or this situation in the past. So um, many of us know about Black Wall Street, which was an area in Tulsa, excuse me, a area in Tulsa that had all Black owned businesses. This area was basically bombed by the U.S. government. And here's a story about how they were basically gonna put a lot of money towards revitalizing that area, and everybody figured they were gonna do that and put Black businesses back there, right? Or maybe museums about what was there. You know what I mean? So this is speaking to the fact that sometimes a lot of the racism, and sometimes a lot of the shit we go through, be a little more covert, meaning people it's more systematic. Watch. So let me get into the story here, family. So amid the revitalization of the business district in Tulsa, Oklahoma, Black entrepreneurs say they are being shut out of acquiring loans, tax incentives, and property in the most desirable regions 100 years after the Tulsa race massacre. Now, about 42 million worth of tax incentives and loans intended to fund development in Tulsa's historic Greenwood district has largely benefited white-owned firms that won the majority of contracts to develop lucrative parcels closest to downtown. The Washington Post chronicled in a recent report. Now, under Oklahoma law, the distribution of these incentives and loans is governed by a race-blind process. City officials have only recently turned their attention to racial disparities in property ownership in the district. Although officials plan to make more land available for redevelopment, the Black entrepreneurs have already been shut out of the most desirable areas of Greenwood. So this is, in my opinion, family, this is racism in America. So how about that? One of the most historic bombings in this country, one of the first bombings on U.S. soil, by the way, one of the first bombings on U.S. soil that just so happened to be of all Black folks, ripped a neighborhood apart, completely demolished a complete community, right? So then yo white ass go back years later and say, okay, we're gonna rebuild that community. We're gonna rebuild said community that we bombed. Okay, this is like, you should have done this shit years ago. Okay, whatever. It's 100 years later. You fucking bombed a community. You bombed the community. You decide you're gonna, okay, we're gonna go back in the community and rebuild it up. But your ass gonna rebuild it up and gentrify it and give all the loans to white folks. And then I'm sure when people look at them and say, hey, this is some racism shit. They, wait, what did we do? See, like systematic racism where it ain't blatantly in your face. Sometimes it's hard to see that shit. Sometimes it make you feel like, well, no, maybe they just going about things the way they're supposed to. But nah, look at the irony of that. This community is gone because you bombed Black folks on U.S. soil. This should be an all fucking Black community. There's no way you can rebuild Black Wall Street and make it all white. Like, how American is that? That's some white, I'm sorry, y'all. That's some white American shit. You take a community that was all Black folks, 100 years later, you rebuild it up, and you're probably gonna put like a little placard or something that say this was Black Wall Street. But nigga, it don't matter when all these 49 businesses is all white folks, maybe a couple Black folks sprinkled in there. You know what I mean? So again, family, we this system, man. I don't know, y'all. I don't know if we ever gonna get to a point where this system is going to completely approach us like from a fair perspective. Everything is like a slap in the face, right? It always seems like it's like a slap in the. That's why unity is so important, family. That's why the things we do with each other. That's why understanding the importance of loving each other, understanding the importance of not hating on people, understanding the importance of messing with Black businesses and learning about your history. Like, what are we gonna do? You see what I'm saying? This is the system that we live in, family. This is the system that we live in. So what are we gonna do? You know what I mean? Because these poor, and think about the families of anybody that was involved with Black Wall Street. So this is 100 years later. You're talking about maybe your grandpa's grandpa, 100 years later, and we still living in a country that won't even look at what they did and say, we fucked up. We finna rebuild a whole community for Black businesses. It's gonna be called Black Wall Street 2 or whatever the fuck you wanna call it. and all the businesses in this community is gonna be black. That's the least we can do for killing hell of y'all and blowing up your whole goddamn community. You know what I mean? Crazy shit, man. But you know, it is what it is in America, baby. Now, time